As you know, I'm very interested in food and farming. I'm aware that the supermarkets are selling us food, well, they call it food, of course, that it has very few nutrients in it and is probably not as healthy as we ought to be eating. And that's because, of course, it's factory food, it's highly industrialized food, and it's made on a great scale. Well, I'm very indebted to my viewer who sent me some information about a study, 10-year study, linked to pesticide exposure. And I thought I'd share it with you. It's from the Defender site, Children's Health Defence News and Views, and you can find them at childrenshealthdefence.org. I'll put a link in the description, of course. And here it is. This is a 10-year study. Link pesticide exposure and childhood cancer, it says. Now, there's a picture, let me just scroll down a bit there. There was a picture of how the pesticides are put onto the plants. It gets into the food chain and, of course, we eat it. The pesticides are there supposedly to help the farmers in order to stop the weeds from getting onto the crops, to stop the pests from eating them, which, on the face of it, it sounds great. But something that kills the pests may well not be nutritious or useful for us humans. So what does it say in this little article, just briefly? And I'll leave it here so that you can read it yourself. Researchers at the National Institute of Pediatrics and National Polytechnic Institute found positive associations between pesticide exposure and heightened risk of certain childhood cancers. Well, that does not surprise me one iota. The finding is derived from a meta-analysis of 174 studies published between 2013 and 2023 and published in the International Journal of Molecular Science. And the authors here say, although pesticide exposure association with childhood cancer has not been fully demonstrated, we found that more than 80% of the epidemiological studies show positive associations with forms of childhood cancer. So now that is, in and of itself, as they say, they haven't found conclusive evidence. But do you not think, using common sense, using critical thinking, that anything that is not nutritious, that has no value in terms of foodstuff, is good for you? You may remember I interviewed Dawn Lester from one of the authors of this remarkable book, What Really Makes You Ill? Why Everything You Thought You Knew About Disease is Wrong, and I thoroughly recommend it. One of the things that she continually says, and in fact many people would argue the same, why put into your mouth or into your body anything that has no nutritional value and in fact potentially has problems with it that is likely to be poisonous? If it's poisonous on a pest, like an insect, then the chances are if you're eating a whole plant or many of those plants over time, is it likely that it is not going to be harmful to you? I would let you make up your own mind. There is, of course, a lot of people who are thinking much more about organic food, and I don't blame them, because if you can move away from the pesticides and all the insecticides and the various poisons and the various other things that they put on to crops in order to make them look nice in the supermarket on the shelves, the better. If you can move away from all of that, the healthier you're likely to be. Plus the fact with regenerative farming, a way of farming that's really probably as old as the hills actually, you don't need all these pesticides. In fact, farmers ought to be thinking about those beneficial insects that will automatically eat the pests. And when and eventually I get on my own piece of land and start farming, that's the type of farming I shall be doing. Now, whilst I was there, the same email correspondent said, whilst you're looking at that, you might be also interested talking about things which are giving you problems and health risks. Have a look at this from the same website. Nearly 1,000 popular cosmetic products contain carcinogenic estrogens. And that is probably not, again, a surprise, but again, a study, it says here, identified 279 estrogenic compounds commonly found in consumer products. And here we see a picture of a woman who's obviously tested out some makeup and put it onto her body, and her skin is reacting to it. And that, again, does that not, I mean, are we not, have we not lost the ability to think critically that if you're spraying chemicals onto your body, onto your skin, the skin is absorbing all of that, is it not? It's absorbing that. If you're putting stuff on, I mean, I know we all think that these big manufacturers, these big corporations who are making thousands and thousands of pounds out of us have our best interest at heart, and surely there must be laws and regulations to stop any of these things being harmful. But are we never going to be using our noggin to think, hang on, how long ago did we start putting all these sort of weird chemicals which have very strange long names that are made up of different compounds onto our bodies? And have we not seen a huge run of problems in the hospitals with all of this? Did we not put just something that was supposed to be useful, a medical intervention recently, into our arm? And that's been causing the amount of ambulances to rush to and from hospitals these days at vast rates. When you put stuff on, whether it be deodorant spray, whether it be creams on your face, they all contain non-natural chemicals. I know the label will have all these lovely pictures and say, oh, there's a little bit of aloe vera on there. But is it genuine aloe vera or is it synthetic aloe vera? And what about all the other compounds that make up the cream? It's not just aloe vera in and of itself. I imagine if you got an aloe vera plant and just rubbed it all round you, you'd probably be a lot healthier. You may not smell so good. You might be had too much aloe vera. Aloe vera. Bye-bye, Brian. And finally, somebody else sent me a notification that they were worried. They'd seen it on the BBC, so it must be true, of course. And let's have a quick gander at it. Why not? BBC says that wood-burning stoves have been banned in Scotland. Well, have they? They're asking, because apparently some new law has gone on in Scotland. And we were told that this was going to happen, that they were going to outlaw wood-burning stoves. Well, it turns out it's not quite like that. So they say a row has broken out over the use of wood-burning stoves in Scotland. So what are the new regulations? And I've seen this verified in other places. And apparently wood-burning appliances, as such as wood-burning stoves, fireplaces and fire pits, that are used to burn wood in our homes and gardens, usually for heating or cooking, from the 1st of April. Now, is that this year or next year? It just says from the 1st of April. Well, 1st of April's been and gone. New homes, I assume it's this year, new homes built in Scotland will not be allowed to use direct emission heating systems such as oil or gas boilers and bioenergy sources, which includes wood or log-burning stoves. So in other words, all new homes, it seems, according to the BBC, must have heat pumps, which apparently go at a better rate, apparently, or other things, electricity, presumably. All of this is to be outlawed. So in other words, if you've got a house that's already got one in, and you're in Scotland, looks like you're all right. For the time being. But new homes are going to be pushed into. It's a bit like the smoking of tobacco. If you're of a certain age, now you can't buy that tobacco. You can't smoke it. And actually, if you are of that age, let's say you're 15, 16, you can't buy it. I think it's now if you're 12, you shouldn't be able to do it. Something like that. But it continues. So eventually they will outlaw tobacco altogether. And tobacco is a medicinal herb, and the nicotine in there is actually quite useful for remedying certain things that you may have had done to you in, say, 2021 after the wonderful March. Do you remember March of 2020, in which the skies, because people were all at home and had nothing much to do, were looking up and going, wow, beautiful hot weather. Certainly here in the UK, we've just had March, we're now in April. And you don't get a chance to see the beautiful blue sky because the aeroplanes are going along with their sprays, and that geoengineering is happening, causing all sorts of problems. Can you count how many days of sunshine you had? We were talking about chemicals being put on your body a few moments ago. There won't be any need for any of that sunscreen, for example, which, by the way, is probably not such a good product to put on your skin, seeing as it's blocking the sun, the most important thing that you can get, apart from things like CO2, the gas of life, and oxygen and other things. So there you go. If you're in Scotland, you'll be all right if you have already got a wood-burning stove. But if you haven't got one, maybe just not bother buying a new house. That may be the answer. There's whole new builds and stuff which are sort of rapidly gone up, bit flimsy, may not be there. Maybe look for an old house with a wood-burning stove in it. Might be the answer. And then just, I don't know, nip to a farm shop to avoid all that highly intensive food that's got pesticides squirted on it. You've got to be so alert these days. It's, it's like we're going back to times when people actually use their brains. Might be a good idea. You never know. It might catch on.